Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm so excited to talk to this guest, got to be honest with you, because we're going to talk about some great things. We're going to talk about the giving mindset. We're going to go over what a new sales process looks like and how we train for that. We're going to talk about how we connect with salespeople, which is lacking in our industry in a big way. But I have the one, the only, the oh so famous Mr. Daniel Gomez in the house.
What's going on, Jason Harris, man? I'll tell you what, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm excited. I'm a car dog by trade, and I say a car dog, not D-A-U-G, right? Not D-A-W-G, but D-O-G, because you got to get dirty. It's not the dog in the fight, right? But it's the size of the fight in the dog, and you got to bring it every day, especially in the car business, because if you don't have the mindset, if you don't have a champion's mindset, I'll tell you what, you're not going to win without confidence in life, in business, and especially in the car business. And you and I both know that, Jason.
We do. Look, it's so much fun, talking to people where the car business is really a part of them, right? I mean, it's like you, it got into my blood many years ago, and I just can't for the life of me ever get it out. I like I was saying off camera, I sold my dealership almost 6 or 7 years ago. Thought I was done with the automotive industry, but it sucked me back in, and just not going to go anywhere at all. But hey, let's before we get into some of the amazing topics that we're going to talk about today, I always like to start every podcast off with a little origin story. So I'm very curious, Daniel, how did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
You want to know, I used to sell piñatas, man. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. And when my dad got diagnosed, they gave him a month to live, man. And he got within that time frame, it was a really shift in my life. I was 26 years old, and I cried because they gave him a month to live. So I left what I was doing, and we started a piñata store. We sold piñatas for a year. We got into a grocery store down here in San Antonio, South Texas, called H-E-B, multi-million-dollar corporation, where we got into them, started selling piñatas to them, other grocery stores. But after my dad passed away, I just said, I got depressed, to be honest with you, man. And I just said, well, I saw this ad in the paper. My wife goes, what do you want to do? I said, well, if I can sell piñatas to a grocery store, I think I can sell anything, don't you think?
I agree.
And because you've heard it. We've all heard it. Why do you want to go sell cars? That's the dumbest thing. It's suicide. And people just don't see themselves doing that. And I saw this ad. There was a little gentleman right there in the center with the cowboy hat. It said sales professionals applied, and the cowboy hat caught my attention. I went and applied, and I said, well, if I can sell piñatas, I can sell cars. And I told the GSM that. He thought I was, what are you talking about? I go, yeah, sir, we just had a retail store that closed down. My dad passed away. He goes, you know what? I'll give you a shot. He goes, do you think you can sell cars? I said, I don't think so. I know I can. And the rest is history, man. I just worked my way up, and Chevrolet dealership, stayed there for almost 12, 13 years and just learned, worked hard. But I realized that it's all about attitude. I've met so many people. I'll never forget it. In my book, You Were Born to Fly, I write about this because there was a gentleman that was an amazing walk-around guy. This guy was the walk-around champion, but his sales were just, they stunk. I mean, bad. Sure. And when I went up to my first sales meeting, I was in awe. I was expecting to see he has all these sales and nothing. And I said, is that correct? I told the guy next to me, Juan, I said, Juan, is that correct? He goes, yeah. So, but he's good. But I didn't understand it because I was a green pea, right? Like we call it in the industry, I was a green pea. And he just, man, it was, I learned quickly there that, okay, something's different here. And people said, how are you doing? So like, what's going on with Daniel? They thought I was a fluke because I sold the first month, I sold 13, then I sold 15. And then next thing you know, 9/11 hit. And that kind of just put things downhill. The next month, Chevrolet came out with Keep America Rolling. And the rest was history. I never looked back. Made more money than I ever had. And this was back in 2001, 2002, making over $100,000, which was now equivalent to $250,000, right? Because just with inflation. And man, I just love the car business. I was hooked. I said, I can make this much money by just helping people. I'm done.
It's true,
though. Me in, coach.
Well, once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And and I always find that, people get into this business one of three ways. Either we kind of fumble our way in, or we're born into the business, or we get conned into the business. It's usually one of those three. So I'm so glad, that your life path took you in the direction that you you were able to come into this industry, even though it may sound like it wasn't from the best of circumstances. But we're very happy to have you in this industry. Your passion, your love, your energy is just amazing. We connected on Clubhouse, aka Crack House. I'm serious, man.
Like, to that, baby.
Geez, like I don't know about you, but I get those like screen time reports. And I spent 17 and a half hours in Clubhouse, and I was like, oh man, that's not good. It's good.
Well,
but
I gotta confess, my wife was a little bit she hasn't gotten mad because I've been onboarding some clients for my coaching programs and some other engagement. But last night she's like, hey, you said we were gonna watch and hang out and watch a movie. And I was in line, and I thought it was like, I told her, well, it'll be like 5 minutes, right? And no, and this one guy just kept talking, and you know how it is when you're in those rooms. If somebody's talking, it just depends on the moderator. And next thing you know, I got up there, and it was a good conversation. And she just like looked at me, she goes, I never sell you nothing, but I was in the doghouse a little bit last night, thanks to Clubhouse.
You know what, though? I really do think that platform is just going to do some really big things in our industry, which we could probably save for an entire podcast in itself. But you were touching about something, kind of we were talking earlier about, about that process, right? On how someone was able to be an amazing presenter, but not close the deals. And, I find that's pretty common. That's still very common actually today. And I find that biggest disconnect there is just a sheer lack of training.
Yes.
And that's where I kind of wanted to start our conversation today is, the sales process has changed so much. The salesperson, I think, has changed so much. The demand for communication in real time on a salesperson has changed a lot. And also just the way the customer wants to buy cars has changed our process in so many different ways. How do we train for that new sales process?
I would say this, just from experience. I have my son's 21 years old, and he's a monster, right? I trained him since he was little. I grew him up with the mindset that he's a winner and a champion, and he lives it, he breathes it. Nice. People always tell me, well, Daniel, how do I know your training works and your coaching works? I'm like, because I have a little house mouse, right? He's my experiment that I've been raising up. Oh, what are you talking about? Yeah, my son Julian. When he was 19 years old, he was crushing it. There's a company here called The Wash Tub, and he became a sales professional. And at 19 years old, he was making $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and he was just crushing it. But it's all about just really understanding that the youth of today ain't like me and you. It's a totally different beast. And I think that we forget that they're human beings. We want to just, how can we say this? The worst mistake that we can make is we see it from our perspective.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is right now in our country here, I'm talking about America. I don't know what it is in different countries, but there's so many blended families now. Mm-hmm. So I want you to imagine you have a mother on this side, a father on this side. They both have two kids. And within those two kids, one of them's a dominant kid here. One of them's a dominant kid there. Yeah. And then next thing you know, they get married and they have a blended family. And then the mom gives one of the kids a guilt trip. Can't you just let me be happy? So what does that do to that person psychologically, right? It screws with their head, especially if you're that D personality. You want to be the best, you want to win. So you have two D children going against each other, and one of them has to give in because one of the parents makes them feel guilty. And these are triggers that we plant in our children and we don't realize it. Mm-hmm. Well, then next thing you know, they end up in the car business, and guess what? They carry these triggers with them, and they don't respond the way that we responded.
It really is. I mean, think about that. I mean, look, when we got into the car business, all right, what attracted us to the car business was six-figure incomes, and you didn't need a college degree. Just bottom line. I think that's why majority of us got sucked into the car business, right? Or maybe for others, it was a legal way to make a decent amount of money.
It's funny you say that because I always use that in my training. I was like, hey, who here can make $2,000 legally in one day?
Exactly.
Besides us.
Exactly. But because we're talking about an entirely new generation and of buyers and sellers. That's the kicker, right? Like we're talking about not just a new salesperson, based on youth or how they were raised or the adversities that they had to go through or the technologies that they had available to them that we didn't. All right. It's also the buyers changed so much. So let's talk a little bit about like how do we train for that new seller, and how do we train for that new seller for that new buyer? That's where I'm going.
Well, the main difference, I think, when I started is we had these pamphlets, and you remember that. I was a Chevrolet store. We had the pamphlets for the Silverado, for the
Yep.
Camaro, for whatever make and model. And I remember a customer coming in, and the customer comes in and, oh, I want to buy a car. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, let's do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then next thing you know, he goes, well, I want a pamphlet. I'm like, all right. So I get him a pamphlet. He goes, okay, well, I'll get with you here in about a couple of months. And I was like, well, I'm already here, so why don't we just go out there? I was able to persuade him to just go out there and look at the cars. And I'll never forget, he ended up not buying. He was looking at a Chevy, those little mini Blazers. And I went back to my manager and I said, what's up with this dude? He's like, what are you talking about? I go, he's here to buy a car, but he just came and got the pamphlet. And he's like, going to buy in 6 months, he said. And my manager, David, goes, yeah, some customers do that. A lot of customers do that. And I couldn't comprehend it because I'm an emotional buyer. If I love it, I buy stuff at the mall that I wasn't even planning on buying. So at that point, I learned that's the first time I really started learning about personalities. He goes, yeah, Daniel, sometimes customers come in and they'll get the pamphlets and then they'll come back in 6 months. Well, that being said, now they do all the research already here on their phone. Exactly. So when they come in, over 80% of buyers are ready to buy. That's the beautiful thing about it. That analytical buyer, that factual buyer that does the research, checks the torque, checks the horsepower, checks how much the legroom is from the back of the cab to the front, and everything else they measure, right? More things than I care to know. But we have buyers like that. And the beautiful thing is, instead of them coming in, getting the pamphlet, and not that they're wasting your time, but they're just going to come back in 6 more months and they're going to shop Toyota, they're going to shop Subaru and all these. They've already done the research. Yep. And we need to understand that that's a beautiful thing with these cell phones. We need to use these iPads and everything else to our advantage. And I think sometimes we don't give them that psychological training to help them to understand, because I hear so many dealerships that I still go and train at, and they're like, the terminology is they're tire kickers. We need to get that word out of our vocabulary as of yesterday, because there's no more such thing as tire kickers. They're looking for a sales professional and not a salesperson. The thing is, we hire salespeople and we never transition them from a salesperson to a sales professional. And I always say this in my trainings, that a salesperson is barely making, they're trying to just make rent and to make the mortgage, whatever it is. But a sales professional has a savings. They have a different cycle. They see themselves as a business within the business. And that's the big difference on that one, Jason.
No, I think for a lot of people that are coming into that, but that's something that we have, if they're coming into the industry, that's what they need to hear. That needs to be kind of the core message if new people are coming to our industry, that this is your business within the business. It's a mindset to be able to do that. It's not, I find, we can't we're not looking for people just to execute on the transaction anymore. Like it goes way beyond the transaction. And, before it was like, you hired people based on how good they can transact. How good can they close? That's how you hired people, right? No, the consumer wants to connect to an individual or to a person or to a brand before they actually connect and then purchase into the product, right? So it's like we're looking for people, and we had to train people on how to connect first, product second, right? When I think we started, it was product first. It was always product. It was like, I don't really need to connect with you. Come on.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the way I learned, right, it's you lead with your pocket. And what I mean with that, it's all transactional. You're leading with your wallet. This is Mason. You said it earlier. We went. Many of us joined the car business because it was promised, I'll make all this money, over 6 figures, 100,000. But now you got to lead with your heart, man. You got to lead with that heart. Mm-hmm. And when you lead with that heart, that's where you connect with the buyer, and then they get open-minded to what you say. And so many times when I do my trainings, I say, look, you have to lead with your heart. When you lead with your heart, that's going to just definitely make a difference, right? Because this is what we don't realize is when you lead with your heart, you end up smiling. And the smile is one of the most powerful things that we have right here. And we don't use it. So many times I'm at the airport and everybody looks like they're mad dogged and they just look so angry. Next time you go to the airport, take a look at the people around you. And it amazes me, when I smile, everybody just starts to smile back.
Exactly.
But I say that because a smile is what's going to open up your customer's wallet. Let me say it again. A smile is what's going to open up your customers' wallets. And so most true. GSM, most GMs, they never talk about this stuff. It's
not that they don't talk about it, because I think they do talk about it. At least I've heard them talk about it. But it's one thing to talk about it, and it's a whole nother thing, because we talked a little bit about this before we started recording today. It's a mindset. See, for you, like, you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to think about it, because it's embedded into you, right? That
Yes.
smile, that giving mindset, all right, is that if I give, I get, but to really get to that place of just giving without expectations is when amazing things happen. But that's a mindset. For everyone out there watching and listening, because Daniel, I know you got some thoughts on this. Like, how do we get ourselves into that giving mindset?
It's just a growth process. One thing that I didn't realize, Jason, man, when I left the automotive industry over 4 years ago, when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, I had the Corvettes, I had the Hardys, had the Rings, had the Rolex. We've all been there, the Mont Blancs. I mean, it's just part of the gig, right? It's part of the car business.
Yep.
And I can tell you that when I left there, I didn't realize how much junk I had inside of me, because we never get the coaching, we never get the guidance to say. We have mentors about the car business, and once in a while you hear somebody with good intentions, but think about how high the divorce rate is in the automotive industry. Let's be real, right? Let's just be honest with
100%.
And I would treat my work family better than my home family.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I never forget when I was at work and my wife called me crying, man. She was just crying. And I was like, what the heck are you, like, chill out. Like, what's going on? And all I heard was the words breast cancer come out. And like, it shook me to my core, because it didn't matter how many Rolexes I had, how much money I had in the bank, our house was paid off. It didn't matter, because I wasn't going to save her. And God put me in a position where it's like, dude, that check engine light's been on in your life for many years already, and you're ignoring that check engine light. And how many times that check engine light come on in our car, and if we ignore it, what happens to the car, Jason? It blows up, it stops.
I love that. I love that analogy. Honestly, I think that's one of the, I'm gonna have to use that, but I'll make sure I source you on the usage.
I just trademarked it. but you're 100% right. I say that because even though my intentions were good, I was blind to so many things, and you have a given mindset in some areas, but in so many areas you have that scarcity mindset that you abandon some of the things that are even more important. And I almost lost my family because of the car business. And I'll tell you, my wife getting breast cancer was one of the biggest things. And I realized that I had to heal my heart, heal my soul, just heal myself to really go out there and give. And when you give without expectations, you learn how to receive without resistance. And I think so many, I've seen this, right? Just our whether you're GSM, GM, a dealer principal, our egos, our pride gets in the way, and we don't receive without resistance. And what I mean is just really receive, because it's something that you feel from your heart, from your soul, and we deflect these things. So we don't know how to give because we don't know how to receive, Jason, on a higher level.
Look, at the end of the day, we were never trained to, right? So I sold my dealership. We had a third child, and there was a lot of stress at home, and I had to make a call. I had to walk away from the dealership if it was going to be a family or dealership scenario, and that's pretty much how it was going to happen. So I've not been in the exact same place that you have, but I've been in a similar place. And I, like you, went through, especially during that time frame, and for the last 6 years, through a very much so of a self-awareness path. All right, really kind of learning about myself, how and why I feel the way I feel, and understanding that, which has opened up a lot around how I maintain a mindset throughout the day and how I just continue to push forward. But what I find is that I, as a manager and as an owner, I never got trained this crap. There was no course out there for me to go take. No one was talking about it. You went to NADA and you got taught about the financials of it, and you got taught about the marketing of it. And it's like even within leadership training, there might have been a sprinkle of this, but not at its core. But I find that giving mindset, because I do know some dealerships that have actually been able to take that giving mindset and build it into the culture of their business, and they are insanely profitable for it.
Yes, anytime you put people before profits, it's good that your people are going to respond. There's things more important than money, and believe me, I love money just like anybody else. But appreciation and recognition will take you further. I can remember our dealer principal, Mr. Vada. It'd be a Saturday. We were tired. It was late. And he would come up behind me. He'd be like, eso, right? Like, attaboy. And no matter how tired I was, he'd be like, come on, let's keep it rolling. And that passion would light up in me because it was just the appreciation that he showed me. And that meant more to me than a $5,000 bonus or a $10,000 bonus, because I knew he really cared. And even though we did a lot of things that weren't right, we did a lot of things that were right. Because I'll tell you, one thing I learned about from Mr. Votto was just the conviction of having integrity and putting the customer first. And that's one thing that he would always talk about when he was in the dealership. But unfortunately, when I was coming up, there was other managers that they kind of outdrowned his voice because they were there more often than he was. But the more I went up in leadership and I became the GSM, the GM, I spent a lot more time with him, and he was like a father figure to me, and really just told me, it's about the customer, Daniel. It's about the customer. It's about, so many times we try to take the shortcut. We ignore the customer because, right, this is it. And it goes back to what we're talking about, the giving mindset. We want to fight the customer for a $60 part, or just say a $100 brake job when it's a used car. And then we piss them off. They get upset.
Exactly.
Instead of just saying, no, let me write it off, $100. And then they're going to be like, wow, Daniel, thank you so much, man. Hey, do me a favor, please, Miss Customer, Mr. Harris. If anybody's looking for a vehicle, please. Oh, yes, thank you. You took care of us. I'm going to let everybody know. Then they go out there, they tell their grandmas or grandpas, and guess what? They bring more customers. But we want to piss them off for $100, and that's that scarcity mindset that we fight.
Sometimes not even $100. I mean, sometimes we're talking about $15. All right, so like I literally watched a service manager get into an argument with a customer because they had a $15 off oil change coupon that expired. It expired like the month before, and the service manager was not going to let the customer use it. I couldn't believe it that I was watching this go down. And but look, this does happen. But with that, I understand the dealerships that I've worked with that have maintained that giving mindset, and it's embedded into their culture. It comes from the top. It always, I can see every single time it comes all the way from the top. So how do we get our managers? Here's my question for you, Daniel. How do we get our managers to really take that giving mindset and embed it into a routine so that it always happens? It's not something that they just get a high on, ride, and then come back off of it. How do we build it into a routine within our management team?
Well, something that we did at a Ford dealership, it was amazing. When I started going there, it was just strictly for training. And then they saw that my training was great. They said, hey, well, do you mind coming into the manager's meeting? I said, sure. Mm-hmm. So I was just there. I just went to listen, right? I didn't say anything for probably two of the meetings that they invited me to. And I observed so much in that. I was like, wow. So I told the GM, I said, can I recommend a service to you? They're like, what's that? I said, I think your leadership needs coaching. Coaching? There was, coaching? They went for training. I said, no, I'm not talking about training. I'm talking about coaching. So from that point, they were doing 415, 420 cars every month, new and used combined. From that point, within about 2 years' time, they went from 425 consistently to up to 550.
Wow.
That's a huge difference. That's 125 units, same post, same used car inventory, same Ford dealership. Mm-hmm. And it's just the fact that they had these conversations with me that they wouldn't have with the GM, that they wouldn't have with each other. And I'm like, and then some of these people, they had so much suppressed inside of them. So it's really breaking through those barriers that they're not, like you said, they're not aware. Mm-hmm. They're dealing with issues that they put off. They have triggers themselves. And when they get triggered, they talk down to the salesman. They talk down to the other. If you're the GSM talking down to your sales managers, well, then guess what? After a while, it's like you can only beat a horse so much, and then it's going to buck you back. And then we spend, I think, I don't want to lie, but I think the average onboarding per salesman right now is anywhere from $600 to $1,000 with the drug screening and all the background checks now that you have to do with everything. Mm-hmm. So you just spend $1,000 on training one person new. So say you have 3 people that you onboard, that's $3,000. Then you pay Daniel to come train. So then that's another $1,000, couple of thousand there. Well, then you have $5,000 on the table, and just to blow them out because they don't have the self-control within themselves to control their emotions.
There we go. It absolutely blows my mind, but we see this happen all the time where people just look like management just doesn't connect with salespeople. That's what it is. They just don't connect with them. But again, I don't necessarily think it's management's fault. I think it also just kind of comes back to a training thing. I mean, look, yes. I I think back when I first started in the business, and maybe it was similar for you as well, is that like it was not a manager's expectations to connect with us as salespeople. In fact, we were just there to serve whatever their needs were. And, the connection was, do it or you lose your job was about the extent of how well some management actually connected with the salespeople. But I don't think that's enough anymore for a lot of
Yes.
reasons. But I mean, definitely.
What you have to understand that training's at a shallow level. When we do our leadership coaching, our management coaching for dealerships, like at a Volkswagen dealership, this gentleman was like, wow, like, and he didn't have the audacity. This was a GSM. He was scared to tell his GM what was going on because he was actually almost getting divorced, but he just didn't know how to communicate it because what do they tell you? Oh, you're weak, you're this, you're that.
Yep.
And he called me, he goes, Daniel, he goes, hey, this is what's going on. I said, well, you know what, let me talk to him and maybe we'll have some sessions. Well, to make a long story short, the GM, like he was like, well, I'm not going to pay for that. I said, great. I said, hey man, you know what, let's do this. So I ended up coaching this GSM for many months and his life just changed. And after that, he ended up leaving that dealership, but he goes, you know what, we're going to bring you in next time at the next dealership that I'm at. And it makes a difference because training is at one level. Coaching goes deeper into your heart, into your soul. And it just really brings that awareness, that transformation that we need, because the truth is this, Jason, we all have junk inside ourselves.
Of course.
And when you take time to really dig deeper, man, people appreciate you in a deeper level and they'll follow you across the highway. So I highly recommend that if your dealership isn't doing general life coaching and even confidence coaching, right? So you got general life coaching, confidence coaching, and just leadership coaching. All this paid huge dividends. Think about that, what I just said. The Ford dealership that we're doing that, they were doing 425 units. You go to 550, that's 125 more units at, just say front and back average, 3,500 a copy. That's that's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, they ain't no small potatoes, But I find though that one of the
that's
reasons-
monthly, and that's monthly.
Huge. That's huge. And I'm listening to you talk, and one of the things that I'm seeing is that one of the reasons we don't connect, management doesn't connect with salespeople, is because as an industry, we don't allow ourselves to have emotions within the dealership. And I want to get your thoughts on this. So this is my next question, because I think right now, and even for myself, when I started in the industry, it was suck it up, buttercup, and check it out the door, right? And how can you connect with someone when we don't give our team permission to actually have emotions? I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that.
That's a powerful statement right there. That's a powerful question, because if we think about it, first of all, there is women in the car business, but I think for a majority are still men. And a lot of men, we've been taught, right? Men don't cry.
Exactly.
Stop being a wuss. Get up, just shrug off your knees and let's go. Come on. And we were conditioned that way. That's a programming, the condition, the mindset that we have, that men ain't allowed to cry. And it goes back to my dad. I remember when my mom passed away, that was the only time I saw my dad cry, besides, I think when she was diagnosed when my mom first got sick, but he never really cried until my mom left us. But I say that because we need to change that conditioning. And we need to realize that we need to allow our emotions to come up. We need to give, I would tell my team this, right? You have to set the boundaries for your organization. You have to set the expectations for your dealership. And I would go in there and I would tell my team, because when I took over at the GSM, we were losing $1 million a month. I mean, $1 million a year. I was like, they're like, why did you take that job? Like, you were doing good where you were at. You were doing very well, but I wasn't being challenged anymore. And I was up for the challenge. But once I was in there, I was like, oh crap, what did I get myself into? But something miraculous happened. Is I said, I'm going to be honest with you guys, ladies and gentlemen. I said, we're going to make a shitload of mistakes and make them. I want you to make them because that's how we're going to learn. But I'll tell you this, the moment you make the same mistake twice, we're going to have a serious conversation and you might not be working here.
It's cool. You gave him permission though. You got to give him permission to do something.
And I gave him the permission, and I'll tell you what, by giving him that permission, you would think we'd have hundreds of mistakes. We would have hardly any. We would have them, but just giving somebody that peace of knowing that I'm not going to get it. Because think about it. What's the mindset of the GM? If our numbers ain't right, we'll bring in another team. It's that dictator, and they put that pressure on you. And that way of running dealerships it's no longer working. So you really got to just connect in a deeper level and allow your people to just to voice themselves. And something that I would do, something that we started doing at a Nissan store is really just, instead of having a huddle to talk about training, it's a huddle to say, hey, well, how you doing this morning? What can we help you with? Do you have any questions, or what's going on with the family, or just connect with the people at a different level? That's what true leadership is about.
Because you're giving them permission to be people.
Yes,
you know, like,
exactly.
I mean, look, the rest of the world already thinks we're a bunch of robots because we sell cars and we're heartless, soulless people, or, you know, beings, right? You know, but why would they not think that? Because as an industry, we've treated our salespeople like that. No, I'm not saying everybody. There's some amazing dealerships out there. There really are. There's some amazing dealerships that do and execute exactly what we're talking about. But if you want to connect with salespeople and you want to have that giving mindset, all right, you have to get to a place where you can emotionally connect with someone. And to do that, first things first in your dealership, you have to give permission. Just like if you want to get past your failures, you have to give permission for people to fail. It is okay to make mistakes. We're going to learn through it. We're going to grow through it. And I think this kind of goes into this next topic that we kind of had about confidence coaching. There's no way, look, we all know, because we've been in the business long enough, is that confidence equates to better customer experience, all right, better profitability. But for us to get to a place where we can be more confident, we have to be able to connect with them emotionally. So this is why we're kind of going to this. But let's talk about this, because it's not something I think gets talked enough about. And I know you got some thoughts on this, is confidence coaching. How do you define that, and where do you start?
Well, think about this. We've all lost. Now, I don't care who you are, how great you are. You're going to go through that spurt, especially as a sales professional. Mm-hmm. I've been there. I went 10 days without sitting in a car. And it's hard, it's challenging, brutal, but I wish somebody would have been there, maybe interceded, right? They would have kind of met me a little bit sooner than going through the full 10 days. Because this is a true reality, Jason, is that no one can win without confidence.
Exactly.
I want you to tell me, Tom Brady just won the Super Bowl. He wouldn't have won. He had confidence in the fact that he had confidence in himself. He had confidence that Gronkowski was there if he was going to throw the ball. He had confidence that he was going to catch it. And then you saw it on the other side of the sideline, Mahoney. Yep. They lost their confidence.
You literally saw it.
And once you lose your confidence, you can't win without confidence. You tell me an NBA champion, somebody that's won the major, that it's won without confidence, and it just doesn't happen.
No, it's totally true. You know, and it's like, you know, what's funny, I loved at the end where it's like, you know, his confidence was so high that he's like, he's going to be back. I mean, what is he? He's in his late 40s, isn't he? Or mid 40s?
43 years old.
He's 43 years old. I mean, come on. When it comes to professional sports, especially football, that's ancient. All right. Yes. I mean, I'd be willing to bet you this guy comes back and he's almost 50 and he's still playing at that level.
Yeah. And going back to your question, it's what we don't realize is when you're with your team every single day, this is why it's important to bring an outside perspective, an outside person to do training and coaching and 100%. Leadership development, is because everybody develops filters after a while. And a good example, well, what's a filter, Daniel? Well, I guess it's a relationship filter. It could be a boss employee filter. It could be a husband and wife filter. How many times, or even a parental, how many times have we told our kids, hey son, blah, 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 blah. And okay, dad. And he doesn't hear you, but then he goes down the street and he comes back a week later, says, hey, you know what Johnny's dad told me? And I'm like, Jay, I just told you that. Oh yeah, you did. Right. But they didn't hear you because, believe it or not, they learn to tune you out as a manager. They learn how to tune you out as a GM because you kind of same story, same tone. Mm-hmm. You become familiar with them, that they tune you out. And how many times have we told our wife, hey, honey, this is going on, but they really don't hear you because we tune there's those relationship filters that are formed. And when you get a fresh perspective, somebody that comes in, they hear you. And they're validating what your message is. So every time I go train at a dealership, I ask the GM, we do an agenda of what they expect, what they want. And we cover these things. And they're like, sometimes it's just hearing it from somebody else. You know what? Maybe Jason is right. Wow, I didn't think about it. Right. Mm-hmm. So they kind of re-engage with you and that filter shifts. And they go, well, what's a filter? Think about this. You had a Mitsubishi store. I'm pretty sure when you bought your first Mitsubishi as the owner, you didn't really have Mitsubishis. And we've all been there. We buy that one car or truck and we see it everywhere, right? Because the filter changes.
100%.
You have to change the filters. And when you have confidence coaching, you go in there and you change the filters of your team. And it's psychological that we do exercises. So we have a 3-month program. We have a 6-month program. And with the yearly program, we definitely go in depth. And think about this. many of my clients they went up over the year 100 units, right? A month. So you figure 100 units times, we'll just say, we'll lowball it. We'll just say 3,000 front and back. That's 300,000 more in revenue times 12 months. That's 3.6 million. And you're paying somebody a fraction of that to get those results. You need to invest in training. You need to invest in coaching, because not only does your sales team need more confidence, but your managers lose confidence too, because they get threatened so much that, hey, you're going to get fired, or this is going on, or just what happened with COVID. Same family of business here, right? Same group. I would go to the Chevy store, confidence was a little bit up, but you go to the Dodge store and like the world was over, because the GMs had two different mindsets and we had to work on their mindsets.
100%. I'm seeing the exact same thing up here, right? I mean, this can, especially times like this, and this reminds me, back like 2008, where, we just had there was just, you could go into a dealership and you could just feel the deflation of energy in the dealership, right? It's just, so it's like now more than ever, right? This is the right time to connect with your salespeople and to, and to coach them on their confidence and to develop out that giving mindset within your culture. I mean, everything we've talked about today, at the end of the day, is just going to give you a better team, better results, and to your point, more profitability. That's what we're talking about. I know that we could easily go for another hour here, and heck, we probably could have turn most of these subjects just into full podcasts in themselves. But Daniel, before I let you go though, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and really enjoyed this conversation we have, would love to connect with you and kind of continue this conversation. What is the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can go to Daniel, right? My website's danielgomezglobal.com. That's danielgomezglobal.com. We just launched our new website, and actually we're about to put automotive sales training and coaching on there also. And you can email us at info@danielgomezinspires.com. That's info@danielgomezinspires.com. And definitely, we have our book Sticker Shock, right? With Sticker Shock, the day you realize you're worth millions, you definitely need to get this
check it out
book for your teams, right? It talks about this. It's called Leveraging Confidence and Success in the Car Business, Sales, and Life. Because when I wrote this book, it really, the feedback I've gotten back, Daniel, thank you so much. It just put things in perspective, because sometimes we try to use so big words, Jason,
for sure,
and it's just being simple, right? Yep. And what I want to do for some of those GMs or GSMs that are having trouble, if they mention your podcast, go to bit.ly/meet Daniel Gomez. And I'll give you a 45 discovery session, and we can talk about your dealership. That's bit.ly/meet Daniel Gomez, meet Daniel Gomez, and we'll discuss it. But I want to help your dealership. I have a proven track record. I was in the automotive industry for 12 years, and I understand business even more now, Jason, because you can relate to this, right?
Yes.
It's one thing working for a dealership when you have a budget of $1 million, but when it's your business, you have to have a totally different mindset to make it profitable. And we've been in business right now for over 4 years, and we love it. I love helping people. And because I love salesmen, I know what it's like not to have that support. I know what it's like to be a young desk manager, not have that support. I know what it's like to have a GSM and you don't have the support. And I know what it's like to run 100 employees and you don't have the support. I've been there. We all need support and help. And I'm going to say this. If you've never lost your confidence, that means you're not growing as a person, as a dealership, as an organization.
That is so, so very true. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a ton of fun. You have yourself an amazing day.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to sign up to Be a Mobster at strategymob.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.